Hey, welcome to Bronx Porch Homestead. So today I decided to stay home and taking care of a back issue. I have a little bit of a weak spot in my back, and yesterday I pulled it out a little bit, so I don't want it to get any worse than what it is. So I ended up calling out today from my compost position. So today normally I am hosting a compost table out in the public, but I'm not going to do that because of my back. So I'm here in the homestead and cooking up some leftovers, which is why I wanted to turn the camera on. So I got these packages of mushrooms. Since I don't grow mushrooms yet, I have to learn how to do that because they were on sale. And I did leave them in the, just so that you could see them, I did leave them in the container a little longer than I wanted to. And as a compost coordinator, you know, I've seen people throw away food scraps that are actually still good. You know, you cook it up. They may not be the crunchiest, but if you cook them up, it's good. And, you know, if you can think of like tomatoes, how we process tomatoes after we pick them, we put them in the freezer or we put them in the oven. It's still being processed, right? Because we're not going to have it as soon as it comes off of the plant itself. So I decided I was going to do the same with these mushrooms, is that I was going to process them even though they are a little bit past the day of sell in the store. I have leftovers from a couple of days ago. It was chickpea pasta, which is really great because it's not real pasta in the sense of the traditional way that we eat pasta. It's made with chickpea flour. It doesn't have the same consistency, and I think it's important to realize that, you know, when you substitute things, a lot of people compare, you know, oh, it's not the same, it's not the same. So, yeah, it's not the same. Get over it, right? It's not the same. You're doing it because you want to eat healthy. You want to help the environment by not wasting food and actually using it. So there's a couple of reasons why I substitute, you know. Which brings me to the topic that I wanted to speak to. I had mentioned it in prior videos. It's a serious topic, and it has to do about food waste. And so right now, as I am cutting up these mushrooms, slicing them up, cooking them down, and then going to add the leftover chickpea pasta in there and give it a different flavor. For those who are listening who don't eat leftovers, you got to get over that too. You know, leftovers is food, it's important. Anyway, back to what I was talking about. Food waste. So, you know, here I am, I'm growing food in an urban environment, very urban, by the way, with all the development around me. And sure, it's not everything that I eat because I still buy food or I get it from the pantry. Because now I've learned where the pantries are and that you don't have to have a minimum income to actually take advantage of receiving pantry materials. And I also have been aware that if the pantry materials are not used or if they're not given away, they throw them out. Big waste. So what I meant about a serious topic is that I have been, you know, reading articles, and people have written their theses on food waste, especially in pantries. Somebody actually did their thesis, I saw it online, about food waste and how to minimize food waste in pantries. It's a big problem, which I didn't realize until in my own community. I was doing some of the work with the Summer Youth program, and we were outdoors and we were doing environmental landscape protection, which, by the way, is the same as picking up litter. We just say it in a much more important way because it is important. And we became witness to a food waste issue in one of our pantries on the corner of where we were. I also did a little clip on that, and I put it on social media, and I thought I would have more response. And it's like, yeah, okay, they're putting food on the bench in the trash. It's like nobody cared, or they're just too busy to care. I don't know. So here I am. I'm trying to grow as much as I can so that I can preserve it, so that I can eat it. I'm also making sure that I don't waste food. And when I do have to waste food, I put it in my food scraps, right? So whatever is left over, these are very fibrous. These mushroom stems are fibrous for me personally. So I don't eat them. So I put them in my food scraps. But guess what? I don't feel bad because then my food scraps goes into my tumbler where I actually process my own compost. But in a city environment, your food pantry areas, unless they have a compost component to it, a place where people can take their food scraps and dump them, it really becomes a waste. And so here we are, we're crying about food prices and inflation, and oh my God, the eggs are $6. Yeah, well, what about the flip side to that? That we're wasting food in so many different areas. I'm appalled at my own community here that people are talking about how expensive food is, and yet we find a tremendous amount of fresh grown local as in probably 30 miles from here, because there really is no farm here. We have small farms where people call their gardening farms. Like I even call my little area a small farm because I have 15 hens, 2 rabbits, honeybees, and I have vegetables. So yeah, it's a small farm. It's an urban farm. That's what it is. It's an urban farm. But I mean, farm where there is land and they grow in rows, in trenches. They have acres of land. It's about 30 miles from here. And these vegetables are packed and put into boxes. They are given to, I guess, City Harvest or wherever they pick them up. And then the person hosting the pantry, has workers. They come in, they get them by the pallets. Problem is, those boxes are opened. People take what they want, and sometimes they take it by the box and they try to negotiate food with each other, but then they leave a perfectly good box almost filled to the top. For example, zucchini that is fresh. I mean, it's so fresh, it's crunchy when you could feel the hardness when you pick it up. So it was really a shame that I had to see that in my own community. And yet, as a person who grows food, who grows food, it was painful to watch. It was painful to watch. And then one of my students actually, he saw the person leaving like 4 heads of kale, 4 big long sprigs of kale. She took it out of her bag, put something else in it, and then walked away. Of course, I didn't tell him to do this, but he said, ma'am, he's calling for her attention, and he says, ma'am, you left the kale on the bench. And I think one of them even fell on the floor, on the ground where dogs, urinate, and there's glass on the ground because people do sit on those benches and they drink. And you know what? He said it loud enough. She was only 2-3 feet away from him, and she just completely ignored him, turned her head like she was, I'm not listening to you. It's such a shame. It's just a shame that even in an urban environment like this, where there's so many economic issues, people are crying because they're complaining about food. But yet, there's a lot of that person that walked away that we saw. And yeah, there's a lot that is not. But it seems to me that I'm seeing more and more people being disrespectful to food. And that's where the true conversation starts, right? There is no connection between that person growing food and that person receiving food. Because to them, they're getting it. No work was involved there at all. They didn't grow it. They didn't water it. They didn't get their hands dirty. They didn't spend time taking care of it. So there's no connection. When you don't work for something or you don't do it and you're just giving it, you figured, oh, well, I can waste it. Anyway, let me get my food scraps thing here. But that is a bigger conversation, to have. The other thing is, as an urban homesteader, I can only grow so much and I can only eat so much, right? So whatever I grow that I cannot consume myself or even package away, that I donate to the pantry nearby. So there's some pantries that are more organized than others. I actually volunteer at a pantry where the organization is phenomenal and they don't waste food. I have yet to see any food being wasted, from their refrigerators. It is just unbelievably well done. And I think that somebody that knows policy and can work on procedure and is in that position to do so, maybe creates a operational procedures for urban pantries. I think that would be very helpful for those that need the help. And there should be some kind of pantry society, some kind of like Friends of New York City Pantry or something like that. That they go around seeing what pantries need, how they work, and there should be some kind of guidelines also. There's a lot of noises going on in my backyard because next door they are continuing the work. Okay, so I do have some leftovers that I'm cooking. The leftovers are a couple of days old. Again, after seeing what I saw a couple of weeks ago, and then not even getting a response on social media, no matter how many platforms I put them in, it's a real shame. It really is. I mean, we really think ourselves so much better than the environment, so much better than nature, so much better than food, and yet we can't live without it. Serious conversation to have is nobody wants to take accountability. No one wants to take accountability for the process of distributing food. No one wants to take the accountability of ordering the right amount of food versus too much food. No one takes the accountability of processing bad food into compost. They figured, well, I don't have the means for it, so I'm just going to get rid of it. Huge conversation to have when here I am just a few feet away from a place where they are throwing food away because they couldn't give it out on time. I mean, a whole bag of zucchini, a whole bag of yellow zucchini, I found a black bag. I think it must have weighed about 200 pounds because it was so heavy. And it was a big bag. And then to find people are given fresh food, take what you want, take what you need, but nobody's actually distributing it. And that's where the problem is. I think distribution in pantries really need to be regulated. It's a waste of money. It's a waste of life. I mean, there are people that really need that food. Effort was taken, so we complain, but we don't look in our own backyards. We don't put ourselves in that equation of, we are part of the problem. So if you're complaining the way I see it, I'm complaining. It means I'm part of the problem because I see it. I'm trying to bring it bring it out there, But I also am thinking, gee, I hope someone else comes up with the solution because I don't have the time for this. And that's what it comes down to, right? Is time, responsibility, obligation, whether it's family, work. But really, some things need to just stop and figure out what else I can do in order to bring light to it, you know? I got into this because when we were in the middle of this pandemic, the reason I started that first video that I ever did was because I was listening to a news station, and there was a woman, now I can't remember if she was from Texas or Tennessee. There was a woman who actually said that it was the first time that she was on a food line, because she had never experienced hunger. And they were interviewing her, and they were interviewing her in front of her home, which was a ranch house, by the way. And right behind her, this beautiful landscape, empty. It had grass on it, but it was empty. There were no raised beds. You know, by that time that the interview was given, because I don't want to hear, oh, it takes time to grow food. We were already 1 year into this pandemic. There was time to grow food. There was time to grow greens, you know. There was, yeah, you can't have everything, but you need to adjust according to the environment. And so that's where that need of me wanting to share my experience, not tell people how to do things or how to lead their lives, but just share my experience in case someone resonates with it, and maybe wants to try a little bit of what I do to, to answer any voids in their life that they're going through in terms of sustainability and, and leading a much more quality, impactful lifestyle. Is really why I do this. Okay, so this is looking really, really good. So it's mushroom flavored, definitely, because I put a whole lot of mushrooms in there. But now I have a brand new meal for tonight. So I'm going to leave it at that because I didn't expect to keep going and talking. But I'm still trying to figure out about pantry distribution and ways that I can help my community with all the pantries get together and help each other out, because I think that's one of the solutions, is getting all pantries in a meeting on a Zoom call, get them to be an alliance, the Bronx Pantry Alliance. It's something's got to get done, because if nothing gets done, then I'm also part of the problem, because I didn't push more. Right now, as I'm doing this video, they are giving out food at the pantry, and food is being put on the benches or thrown away in the public trash. And it needs to be stopped. It needs to be stopped. So as an urban homesteader, besides just taking care of my own backyard, my own little part of the world, I also want to be helpful and take care of what's outside of my doors. It's where I work. It's where I walk around. It's part of my home. It's part of where I reside. So, for renters who sign their lease, 2-year lease, yeah, you're signing a lease to your apartment, but you're also signing a lease to this community. And I say that all the time. For me, yeah, I still have a mortgage. I have a mortgage, but I also have a mortgage to this community. So whether you rent or you own, we still have a civic obligation in society to do something in the community that impacts others to have a better quality of life. Whether you agree or not, that's your opinion. My opinion, which I have a right, like everyone else, is if you want a safe and healthy community, you got to work at it. And you got to include food, because food is the main source of life besides the air that we breathe. I guess this was a serious discussion after all. But anyway, food for thought. That's it for now. Until the next time.